Hey, Rod at East Coast Lumberjack. We're doing a series on sharpening. And last week I showed you how to sharpen an axe with a 1-inch belt sander. I will follow that up in a week or two and show you how to do it with a file, which most guys will actually likely use. However, we're going to this week is we're doing finishing axes, how to put a really razor sharp finish on an axe. Now, we're headed to the Steel Timber Sports National Finals in Charlottetown, PEI tomorrow. Actually, Ben, my oldest boy, is headed out today with Matt Budd. Matt's in the rookie finals. Ben's going over to give him a hand. So they have a room for tonight. So they're headed out. So I've got about 2 hours to finish up Matthew's axes and to put a nice edge on Benjamin's axes. So we're pretty blessed. The Cumberlands make up 25% of the competitors in the top 12 in Canada this year. Nathan and Ben did pretty well at the qualifiers, and the old fart squeezed in at 8th place. So I'd like to maintain that this weekend. We'll see what happens. I've been training my guts out the last couple of months, so we'll see what happens. Biggest thing I want to do is get an underhand chop under 50 seconds. That's my goal, is not to win anything. So anyhow, these razor blades that we have, these 5-pound razor blades, you guys hear me talk about them all the time. They're Tuatai axes for the most part. And here's one here. So I've got to finish this one up for Matt. So he's played around with it a little bit. This is actually a second-hand axe. Comes from an old competitor, a buddy of mine, Roger McPhee. We've been competing for about 35 years together. And Matt bought a few of his axes off him because Roger's getting ready to hang up the blades. So what I'm going to do is show you, so this axe has been sharpened, and typically what happens is competitors, before they chop in a big event, will use, and I'm just looking for it, okay, they'll use a ceramic stone or a really hard Arkansas, and they'll put an edge on the blade. So they'll take one like this. This here's a Loctite. It was made in Niagara Falls, Canada. Nice little stone. Actually, big kudos to Jesse Whitehead from down under, who actually gave this to me when he was out here competing. So thanks a lot, Jesse. It's actually a phenomenal find, and it's a really good axe. So what we will typically do is we'll lay that, as you can see on this edge. Maybe I'll hold it this way for you. You'll see there's a 1-inch. So from here out is a 1-inch bevel. Okay, so this is the cheek of the axe. Then from here right out to the edge it's about a 1-inch wide here bevel right across the edge of the axe. And your fingers will tell you a lot about a blade. If I run my fingers along this, I can feel that actually there's a little bit of a grip here. There's a little bit of an anomaly in the edge, so it's dull right here. I can feel it with my finger. But all along the rest of it, it's not bad. But it's not real sharp. It's not grabbing. If you run your fingers lightly, I mean lightly, along the edge of your axe blade, it will tell you a ton, okay? I feel and see with my fingers on axes, and I've done it for, like I say, 35 years now. And I can feel there's a little bit of grit up here, so there's something not right up at this end of the axe. But the rest of it, if it's really sharp, it'll grab my fingers, and that means it's cutting into my fingerprint, those little ridges in your fingers. The blade is grabbing those because it's really sharp, and it's what I call gripping your fingers. And this one doesn't do it, so the edge is gone. Now typically what we do at a competition, we will take a Punjab or a ceramic or an Arkansas stone, and we'll hold our fingers underneath about halfway back like this here. That gives you about a 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch up. We'll lay that on the edge of the axe like this, and we'll go back and forth, stone back and forth. And that puts this little micro bevel, you can see it out here, it's about the last millimeter, and you can see it's a micro bevel. It does two things. It toughens the axe edge, and it also gives it that really fine finish. Now, as competitors do this over and over again, so say this is the last millimeter out on your axe edge. So typically what we do, we're going to take this Punjab, or this, I can't remember, a Loctite stone, and we're going to go out here on the edge and stone it. Now, what happens over time, and once you do that over and over and over again to get that edge, you're going to round this. Okay, so rather than being straight out to the edge, it's going to round over time because you're going to keep working on that edge out there. So as that rounds, it actually it's less and less of a fine cutting edge on the edge of your axe. So what we have to do is eventually we have to take a bigger stone, like my Norton, and we'll go back and put a new edge on. So basically we're going to flatten that out again so it's nice and flat right up to the edge. So that's typically what we're doing on these axes. So when I do an axe before a competition, if it's a nice keen edge, typically all I have to do is a couple passes with this one, and it bites into my fingers, it's razor sharp, ready to go. Some people strop with leather, and it does a very good job. I'm not saying anything against that, but we don't mess around much with leather, okay? Our axes are in leather sheaths, and that'll do whatever stropping we need done before the show. So this here is typically how we'll finish our axe. So what I'm going to do with this one, because it's a little bit older axe, I'm going to use my Makita here, and I'm going to, this one here is got that's a 220 there. I'm going to put a 220 grit on it. Okay, so handy dandy little Mastercraft, so I've got a 220 grit. I'm going to put that on here, and I'm just going to polish up the face of this axe a little bit because I can see it hasn't been polished in a while. So all I'm going to do is, as you watch here, nice and lightly out to that 1-inch bevel, I'm just going to polish the face. We're going to bring it back. I'm going to do the cheek of it here as well. Whoop, and there she goes. So, this is what it looks like now. Okay, so I polished that up really nice. And it makes it nice and smooth. So, typically when we're chopping, we chop aspen, trembling aspen, large tooth aspen, and pine sometimes. I know Matt's been doing a bit of that chopping as well. So what that'll do is that'll leave a little bit of resin on the cheek of your axe. So we want that off of there. We don't want that residue on there because it'll cause the axe to stick in the wood. So now what I'm going to use, biggest bit of advice from the old East Coast Lumberjack this week. Where's my other, okay, the boys have it packed. So, when we started out competing, WD-40 was the way, okay? And there's nothing, look, I love the smell. WD-40 and pine pitch is one of the best smells in the world. It's as good as a T-bone steak on the barbecue with hickory blocks. So it really, gets the blood pumping, lots of great memories because we used to chop pine a lot. And we would use WD-40. Now, WD-40 is awesome on an axe when you're chopping pine because WD-40 will break down that pitch and allow your axe to slice in it really nice, really smoothly. And we use that on our saws as well. So our crosscut saws, our buck saws, WD-40 and pine is a great combination. However, if you recall, if you're a dad and you've actually sprayed your kids' bicycle chains with WD-40, what happens after about a month? That thing comes back and is squeaking and creaking, and you wonder, what? I already WD'd that. You must have left that out in the rain. Well, no, they didn't. In WD-40, it has solvents. And what happens over time is it will actually cause rust in the long run. It may loosen stuff in the interim. It's really good with us in pitch when you're using a tool in pitchy wood. But if you're going to store an axe, do not use WD-40. Because as it dries, those solvents will cause pitting in your axes. And how do we know that? From years of experience. And hauling our axes out the next spring and going, what the heck happened to my axe? So what we use now is Crown. Now, Crown, most people that get their vehicles undercoated realize that it's an anti-rust solution. It works incredibly well. So now, whenever we store, actually what I did between WD-40 and Crown is I used to put Vaseline on my axes. So in the wintertime, because we don't chop much in the winter, I'd Vaseline all my axes. Just a heavy coat of some oil to keep it from any moisture from getting in and pitting your axes. Now we crown them. Crown is phenomenal. It works well as a lubricant, but it also works really well in guarding your axes and keeping them well. So that's the tip of the week from the old East Coast Lumberjack. And no, I don't have any. I probably should buy shares in Crown because they're a good outfit, good corporation. They've sponsored our Lumberjack stuff for years. And our TV show, if you haven't seen our TV show, please Google or go on my YouTube channel and you'll be able to see lots of our videos. Lumberjack TV series where Crown is the main sponsor. But it is phenomenal for working with axes. So I will use that on all of my stones that require oil. And I use the solution on that, and T32 is a little bit thicker. It's a nice one too. They also have a chain spray, and it's really good for storing your axes. Okay, so that's how I finish the face. Now, I'd like to have a little bit, I've got a polisher behind me here, and what I would typically do is then polish that up to a nice mirror finish. Now, I need 380 volt, 6 amp. My electrician's just ordered all the parts. I don't know how much it's going to set me back, quite a few pesos, but anyhow, I needed to run these machines so I can show you how to polish an axe. In the interim, what I will do is just spray this with some Crown and then use my stone and just go over that to make sure it's nice and smooth. There's nothing going to grab in the wood. So I'll just go back and forth here a few times. I can feel a little bit of catch when I'm doing that, so the stone will bring any of that out of there. Okay, so just back and forth. May not look the prettiest, but I'm not into looks, I'm into effect. Okay, and you can see that this is a pretty flat grind right up to that 1-inch bevel. Okay, so it's there's my, right there. Okay. Now, if you look really close right here, let's see if I can get the light on it. You can see that there's a nick in this axe. Right there. Okay, there's a little nick right there if I flash it around. So, that nick was put in, so somebody hit something hard a while ago. It's been in the edge for a while, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use my Norton stone, and I'm going to put it on that 1 millimeter bevel, and go back and forth and take that out of there. So this is finishing an axe for a competition. So as you saw, we actually did our 1-inch belt sander last time, and that's how you put your, this here would be a 3/4 inch chisel. That's how you put that 3/4 inch chisel on. Now you're going to finish the edge. So what I'd use, a little bit of geometry. You wondered why we did geometry in high school. The East Coast Lumberjack is going to tell you that geometry helps you when you're sharpening an axe. So what we have here is basically a right angle triangle. Okay, so we have a distance from here to here, and then we have a height from the middle of the axe up, and then the angle. And typically, the best angle we have, 13 degrees, is a little bit thin. If you're chopping really nice wood, you can probably get away with a 13 degree bevel out here on the edge. Now most of our axes are 14 because they're a little bit stronger, but they still cut nice. 15 degrees and a little bit harder woods like poplars, and then when you get up into frozen wood, you're 18, 20 degrees. So half of that, half of 14 degrees is 7 degrees. So if you take the tangent of 7 degrees, it's 0.11. So if I measure the distance, which I will do, oh, we're back into the whole, we're back into where's all the measuring tapes, because we're getting all packed up to go to the island, so I'm sure the guys have got the measuring tapes all packed away here. There's a couple American dollars in that. That's kind of cool. Okay, so it's in Nathan's bag. Just a sec, I'll run and grab it. So on all these axes, on all the two-tie axes, you'll see there's a little pinhole right back here, okay, in the axe. Now that there pinhole is what they use to put the arc on the edge of the axe. So whatever they're using it for their machine, it goes from here out this way, and then it goes back and forth, and that's what gives you this arc, your cutting arc. So that little pinhole is a pretty key measurement. So from the edge to that hole is just about 7 inches. So 7 inches from here out. If I was going to put something on here, this height, this length, I'd have to know what the height is. So the tangent of 7 degrees, which is half of this 14-degree angle, is 0.11. So 7 inches times 0.11 is 0.77. So I need 0.77, so basically 0.8 of an inch up from the center of this here is how high I want whatever I'm using to give me that 14-degree edge along this 1-inch bevel. So what we're going to do now is put the micro bevel on, so it's going to be a little bit steeper than that. So I know from over the years that basically if I put my fingers underneath my stone about 3/4 of the way back and put them on here, that gives me another probably 2 degrees on my edge, and it gives me the 1 millimeter bevel I want on the edge of my axe. So what I will do now, I'm going to do this back and forth. I'm going to spray my stone with crown, put my fingers underneath where I know they go, and I'm going to go back and forth on this edge. And you hear that little click, 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 click? That's out here where that little anomaly is in the edge. So I'll go about 8 or 10 strokes on that side, and then I'll flip it this way and do 8 or 10 on this side. And all I'm doing, remember, it may be rounded out there, and I'm just going to keep it at the same angle and keep going so I actually stone my way down into the steel, and it comes out on a perfect point at the end of the axe. So back and forth there 10 times, and I'm going to keep doing this back and forth to put a new micro bevel on the edge of this axe. Now, once I do this a few times, back and forth, not a lot of weight, it's basically the weight of the stone back and forth. And once it goes down through this steel, we're going to get a real fine wire edge on the edge of this axe. Not quite yet. So I'm just going to stone back and forth like this, back and forth. And once I get that wire edge out there, I know I'm to the very point of the blade. Okay? So back and forth, back and forth. I don't know what that was. Okay, so there's the little wire edge right there. Okay, so it didn't take a lot, which is good. Little wire edges on this side. So I'm just going to go back and forth a few more times, nice and light, with my stone. You can hear that little grit as soon as you start. That's running along that wire edge. And hear that? I did it on this side, same thing. So that wire edge, now we're flopping that wire edge back and forth, wire edge back and forth. And what will eventually happen with that wire edge? It'll break off. When that wire edge breaks off, that is the keenest edge you're ever going to have on your axe. So I'm just back and forth. And sometimes you can even see when it comes off, you'll see the little bits of the wire edge along the edge of your axe. So I'm just going to go 3 or 4 times now, back and forth. Okay. Now, depending on how bad the edge is, or how rounded it is, I should say, not how bad, but how rounded it is, it may take you a little bit longer to get out there to that edge. Okay, so now what I'll do, now that I have that almost as keen as it can get, I'm going to take my really hard stone. It's a water stone, so I've wiped all the oil off it, and now I'm going to go back and forth with this. Same angle. Okay, so my fingers are underneath here, and usually you can hear it as well, just cutting that last fine little edge back and forth. And this is going to put the final finish on it. I don't know where I'm going to find a piece of paper here to show you how well it's going to cut. My fingers typically tell me when I'm done. So that's a few more back and forth. Okay, we're almost there. So that little anomaly's gone out of this end up here. I haven't quite gotten out there to that little nick that I found, but that's not bad. Okay. Oh, there's it's a piece of paper, but it's one I need to keep. Oh, here we go. Here's a piece of paper. Too flimsy. Too flimsy. It's really flimsy paper. I may have to double it up to get. There we go. Okay, so it'll cut it no problem. So that's just quickly how you put a finishing edge on an axe that you've already ground. So last week we did grinding with a 1-inch belt grinder to sharpen an axe. This week we talked about putting the micro bevel on the end of it. So now what I'll do to finish this off, I'm going to go back. Of course the edge has been done, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to sand this side to get that pitch sticky stuff off of it. And of course I've already done the edge, so I'm good there. So I'll finish this axe up by doing that. Typically, when the buffer's working, I'll buff it out so that'll be a nice mirror finish on this side here, and all is ready to roll. So that's fine tuning from the old East Coast Lumberjack, and we'll be videoing from Charlottetown, PEI. I'll bring you up to speed on how things are going over there, and if I'm still alive and breathing and don't need the AED. But anyways, hopefully we'll have a great weekend. So talk to you in a bit. East Coast Lumberjack signing off again. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, be sure to subscribe. More good stuff coming.